Anyone can have a bad night of sleep. But put a few of those together, a few days of that, a few weeks of that, a few months of that, it's nothing to dismiss. And today's expert's going to take you through not only the common sleep disorders, but also the mistakes you may be making, not just in routine before you go to bed, but throughout the entire day. In fact, anyone who doesn't wake up feeling restful, energized, and ready to attack the day, you're going to want to watch this session with Cararissa Henkins. Hey, Cararissa, so first question out the gate here. What are some of the challenges people have when they're not getting good sleep?
Oh, well, we often think of sleep as just a sleep problem, like when we can't sleep well enough, but really it's a 24-hour problem. So whether it's I can't sleep or I can't sleep enough or my batteries totally are getting drained in the afternoon, we're on a 24-hour cycle. And I think it's important to realize that or understand that when you're looking at sleep, it's not like the thing that starts right when you take yourself to bed. It actually, a good night of sleep starts with a good morning.
Wow, that's taking a whole different approach to it, because I was thinking like people on their phones too late, people maybe having coffee too late or watching TV or whatever, maybe be off in their routine. But you're actually talking about starting this in the morning, or on the flip side, a bad morning could lead to a bad night of sleep.
Correct. So our 24-hour clock, or our clock that controls sleep and wake, it's actually a little bit longer than the Earth clock. And so we reset our clock every day when we wake up. So if you don't have a set wake up time, like your body doesn't know, it's just trying to keep up. So it's taking in all the cues from the environment, from your habits, from your routines to go, am I supposed to be awake or am I supposed to be asleep? Oh, I'm supposed to be awake now. So that means in 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours, that's when I'm supposed to be going to sleep. And if we get those cues and signals mixed up, then we have a hard time because the brain doesn't know. We are habits of routine, and we always like to know what the program is. You have children,
Oh
right,
yeah,
Don?
3 boys. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have children. And one of the things I noticed when my kids were really small is we had a bedtime routine. And there would be like that one book that would put you out. I think for us, it was Goodnight Moon. Like the parents are like, oh my gosh, I can't stay awake for this. But if you try to skip that step in the routine, it's like, oh no, I cannot go to sleep because the routine is totally thrown off. And my brain was expecting this and this and this, and then we go to sleep. So if we don't have a good sleep routine, or if our sleep routine is tied to something that's actually better suited for wakefulness, like being on your phone, then that's going to be counterintuitive to being able to get to sleep and to be able to wind down and get good sleep. The other thing is we have two sets of hormones and neurotransmitters. We have the ones that bring us up to wake us up, and then we have the ones that help us to power down. And so I think the struggle for a lot of people is that those hormones and those neurotransmitters and those signals, they're not coming when they're supposed to. Right. So when you want to wake up in the morning, you want to be alert, you want to be stimulated, you want to have, your heart rate going, and you want to feel that like I'm awake. And you don't want that at night when you're trying to go to sleep. But I think a lot of people struggle with that.
And so that goes right into kind of the challenge people face. They're trying to fix maybe a symptom and trying to maybe take a supplement or do something before they go to bed or put their mind in the right spot. But they're fighting an uphill battle all day. What are some other things that they're trying that just doesn't seem to work on a regular basis?
Oh, Oh, there's so many of them. I think probably the one that I see the most, given where I fit professionally and in my community, is that people aren't breathing right when they're sleeping. So they don't know necessarily that they're not breathing right. They just know, why am I awake again? Or why do I have to take a nap again in the afternoon? And folks may go, well, it's just snoring. Well, maybe it's not just snoring. It's sleep or breathe. And if you can't do both well at the same time, then that translates into a 24-hour health problem, and it can even go beyond sleep.
Now, I don't know whether you call them members or students or patients or whatever you call people you've helped, but what's been the after effect once they've worked with you and they have the sleep again? How does that have an impact on their life?
There is no substitute for having good quality sleep and being able to breathe when you sleep. And where I fit in is I help people to understand their sleep. So let's say you've gone for a sleep test and maybe you didn't get the best experience to like really dive deep into what those results were. I love going with my clients or patients, depending on what the scenario is, and going through those sleep test results. There's this page usually on the results. It's called the hypnogram. It's a table. It's a graph actually. And it takes the time, your sleep stages, your breathing events, your oxygen saturation, your limb movements, your body position, like all these variables, and it puts it in a graph. And so we're able to actually put a story with the pictures, your story with your pictures. So you can go, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Because a lot of people, like, we know sleep is super important, but at the same time, we don't. We haven't been trained as healthcare providers to really be able to get into it deeply. And I think that's something that a lot of people want to know, like, is my sleep normal? And a lot of times what people think is not normal, like I'm able to go in and go, yeah, well, actually that is normal.
Mm.
You're in the sleep lab, of course you're not going to sleep that great. um, or if they have personal tracker devices that have some of that sleep monitoring stuff, which, it's not super accurate, but it gets us pretty close. The other thing is a lot of folks who end up testing in the affirmative for sleep apnea, they're then faced with having to do something about it. Like, you don't know how you're going to do. You don't know what symptoms you have that are going to get better until we treat it and see what happens. And so a lot of folks end up going on CPAP therapy, and maybe they get like a whole bunch of information, kind of like throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And most of it just kind of falls off the wall because it's just so much information, right? But at the same time, like, here's this thing, use it. Hey, why aren't you using it? So the other place that I really help my clients and my patients is to be able to get to that golden unicorn of put it on, go to bed, done. Like, you shouldn't be wrestling with the thing. There shouldn't be a helicopter in the bedroom overnight. I shouldn't be able to tell what kind of mask you wear by the rash on your face. Um, and I think for me, there's nothing better than having somebody who was worried, concerned, struggling, frustrated, go from that place to, I think I got this. And CPAP is not for everyone, right? Some people look at the CPAP and they're like, oh, there is no way on God's green earth that this is ever going to happen for me. And it also gives us the opportunity to talk about what the other options are, because I think everybody should have the option to treat their sleep apnea in a way that works for them and is beneficial.
And how does they get started with you? What's kind of the first step? Are they booking a call? Are they seeing if they're a fit? Do they need a prescription? I mean, how do they get into your world?
So we offer CPAP coaching services, and you do not need a prescription. We do not take insurance. And there's two ways to get started. If you're like, yes, I totally, definitely, absolutely want to work with her. All my questions have been answered. We do have self-scheduling on our website, hellosleephealth.com. If you're like, I'm not sure that my particular scenario and situation is going to be appropriate for the kind of services you offer, I just want to make sure. We also have the option to do just kind of a meet and greet sort of a call, get your questions answered. And usually when people put their information in to the form on the website, I give them a call kind of as soon as I have a chance. Some people are surprised, like it's been a generally pretty quick turnaround, and I'll say, so how can I help? What are you looking for help with? And I always love these conversations because I always learn something, and the person on the other end of the line, they get to feel heard, and sometimes they learn something too.
That's awesome. And one thing I look at so many times, you don't give them a chance to speak and tell them what's going on, so you can actually have a clean or a more effective process and treatment here. This isn't a one size fits all, is it?
No, no, absolutely not. And I think one thing that sets my coaching services apart is um, we have 45 minutes to an hour where we do our initial work together. And ahead of that, I'm looking at whatever documentation you throw my way, whatever download data you throw my way. Like I'm going deep on that stuff. And then we have our session. And then for 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks down the line, you have the option to meet with me again briefly. How did it go? Any other questions? Because I don't want people feeling like we met one time and then see ya. No, 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 no. Like I want to know, how is it going? Did what we talked about, did it work? If you decide to try any experiments, and just, basically, how are you doing? So you don't feel alone. So you do feel like you have somebody in your back pocket. And most people, they only need just a couple of encounters to be able to get on a better footing. And that's what we offer. And certainly some folks have been like, no, no, I want to come back, depending on the scenario. But yeah, it's very individualized based on what it looks like you need. And it's been surprising the folks who come to see me for the coaching stuff. Usually it's, I want to know that my CPAP is doing okay, but I want it to be a really, really deep dive. I don't know what all these waves and squiggles and the download data mean. Or they said I'd feel better, but I'm still tired and exhausted. And so we can give them some ideas of places to talk with their healthcare team to go, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Because sleep apnea has friends and there are other sleep disorders usually. So there's no rule that says you can only have just one of them.
That makes a ton of sense. Now, what made you get into this in the first place?
Well, I think sleep found me. I always was like the queen of napping, and yeah, I was always tired. I was always the queen of napping. I went to nursing school and then nurse practitioner school, and I always wanted to learn more about myself, right? To be able to do the best that I could for myself. And the irony of it was that when I started in sleep medicine, I didn't know nearly as much about it as I wanted to. I didn't learn hardly anything about it when I was in school, other than you're not supposed to take medications like Zolpidem or Ambien for more than 7 to 14 days, which I thought was ridiculous. Because what do you do on day 15? And what do you do on like month 5? Like, what do you do? But that's where sleep apnea comes in. And so I feel like sleep medicine found me. And even though it turned out that I don't have sleep apnea, at least not at this point, um, it was really good, even though for much of my time working in someone else's sleep clinic, I was exhausted, not from sleep apnea and not from narcolepsy, but to get to see people win and succeed. I've seen a lot of people get blown off, like, oh, you don't fit the typical picture of somebody who could have sleep apnea. And I've gotten to the point where I can be like, really, is that so? Because I see this and this and this and this in your history and just looking at you. And yeah, we could have done better. We could have gotten to you sooner so you wouldn't have to feel miserable for as long as you have necessarily.
Right, and people struggle with this for years, sometimes decades, unknowingly, and that's what a tragedy that happens to be. So.
For sure, for sure. And so some people it's related to the obesity or extra weight, extra insulation that they carry. But some people it's the way they're made. And so we typically, like the classic presentation is an older guy. He has extra weight on him. He snores like a banshee. And you catch him at church or in a waiting room, he's probably snoozing, right? We don't necessarily think of the petite postmenopausal, perimenopausal woman who there's no extra weight. It's where she's at in her life and it's the way that she's made. And even kids can have sleep apnea. So, like, I think if you have a pulse, then sleep apnea needs to be somewhere like in the back of our minds of, is this a possibility? Because it messes with all sorts of areas of life, right? So it's hard on your brain and your heart and your memory. We see ADHD going with it. So if you're like, squirrel, squirrel, that can be related to sleep apnea for some people. Nightmares, getting up multiple times overnight to go to the bathroom, waking up with headaches. Leg cramps is a super fun one, because what's the farthest away from the lungs? The brain and the heart get the first oxygen and the first blood. Your legs are the last in line. So that makes perfect sense why people would have like this variety of symptoms. And at the same time go, well, I don't snore, so I must be fine. Or it couldn't be that. Well, maybe it could be. Maybe it could be.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you this, if you're still watching this at this point, this is something that at least from my experience, most of the medical community doesn't really dive into. They just say, oh, you know, it's supposed to be stressed, or stay off the phone, or stop drinking coffee or pop or whatever. They don't really get into this depth. And then when you do get into this depth, you're in a months, sometimes weeks, but mostly months long waiting list, and sometimes even a year or more of just trying to figure out what to do. Carissa's here to help shorten that cycle. Not a replacement for your doctor, but someone to help you along the way, interpret what you're being told, and help you decide on the best course of action. Doesn't include any risk. I would probably take her up on this right now. You'll find it wherever you're watching this video, in the description, on the screen, maybe in the comments, wherever you're seeing this video, there's a link for you to book that call to find out if this is going to make sense. And I'll tell you this, you better book it now before that call fills up. It won't be long until it's not Carissa returning those calls and doing those things. It'll be her team that's already starting to come together. So this is something you want to take advantage of now, someone who's not going to be judgmental, someone who's not going to just rubber stamp a process on you or put you through a factory of outcomes or a factory of things that you need to try to do. Someone's going to tailor a solution to exactly what you need. Book that call now. Carissa, I appreciate you for being here, and I want to leave you with the last word.
You're not overreacting, I think, is a great last word. You know, if you feel like something is off, if you feel like something is not right, if you're just not sure, could this be better, whatever I'm doing for my sleep or my sleep apnea, you're not overreacting, to look for a solution and to just have some confirmation that, yeah, you're good, or yeah, there's probably some things, some targets that you and your healthcare team can focus on to help you to feel better.
I love it. Carissa, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.